You can't fix someone who doesn't value you, and deep down you already know that truth. You've just been arguing with it for too long, replaying messages, rereading silence, trying to decode indifference like it's a puzzle instead of accepting it as an answer, because she's not confused, she's not busy, she's not overwhelmed by life in a way that makes her forget you. She simply doesn't prioritize you the way you prioritize her. And that imbalance is what's been slowly draining your peace while you kept calling it love. You waited for replies that came late or came cold while she gave her attention freely elsewhere. You made excuses for distance. You called inconsistency a phase. You called neglect timing. You called emotional absence personality. But reality doesn't need interpretation when behavior is already consistent. And every day you stayed in that loop, you weren't proving loyalty. You were proving tolerance for being undervalued. And the hardest part isn't even what she did. It's what you started doing to yourself. Lowering your standards just to keep access to someone who treats your presence like it's optional. Because when someone values you, they don't leave you guessing. They don't make you compete with silence. They don't make you feel like you're asking for too much just because you want clarity and consistency. But you kept thinking if you tried harder, explained better, waited longer, stayed calmer, she would eventually recognize your worth. Yet worth is never something someone discovers after repeated neglect. It's something they either respect from the beginning or never prioritize at all. And what you're feeling right now, that slow emotional exhaustion, that confusion mixed with attachment, that hope fighting logic, isn't love growing. It's attachment surviving in an environment where it's not being reciprocated. And you've seen the pattern already. The more you gave, the less she valued it. The more available you became, the less she showed up. The more you tolerated, the more she normalized, until you started negotiating your own needs just to avoid losing someone who was already halfway gone. And that's the mental trap. You don't leave because nothing happened. You stay because something small keeps happening, just enough to keep hope alive. A reply here, a memory there, a moment of warmth that resets your patience but never changes the pattern, and you start building an entire emotional identity around potential instead of reality, around who she could be instead of who she consistently is. And in that process, you slowly abandon your own grounding, your own standards, your own peace, until your emotional state depends on how someone inconsistent feels on a random day. And that's not connection. That's dependency disguised as loyalty. And the longer you stay, the more you normalize confusion as chemistry, inconsistency as depth, emotional distance as something you must earn your way out of, when in reality healthy connection doesn't require decoding. It requires mutual effort. But what you're really facing is the painful realization that she has already shown you everything you need to know, just not in words, in patterns, in absence, in delay, in half-effort, in the way she can go days without you while you can't go hours without thinking about her. And that imbalance isn't proof you love harder. It's proof you're giving more to someone who is not matching your emotional investment. And the mind will always try to protect attachment by creating excuses. Maybe she's healing. Maybe she's stressed. Maybe she's not ready. Maybe I need to be more patient. But patience without reciprocity becomes self-neglect. And understanding this is where everything starts to shift, because the goal was never to win someone's attention through endurance. The goal was always mutual presence, mutual effort, mutual respect. And when that's missing, you don't fix it by trying harder. You fix it by seeing it clearly. And once you see it clearly, you realize the real prison wasn't her behavior. It was your hope that she would eventually become someone she never demonstrated she was willing to be for you. And that's why letting go feels difficult, not because of who she is, but because of the future you built around her potential. But every time you go back, every time you re-enter the cycle, every time you accept less than you should, you reinforce a version of yourself that believes love must be earned through suffering. And that belief is what keeps you stuck more than her absence ever did. Because the truth is, she already made her level of investment clear through her consistency or lack of it. And the only thing left now is your response to that truth. Whether you continue explaining your worth to someone who doesn't reflect it back, or you finally understand that silence, inconsistency, and emotional distance are also answers, just not the ones you wanted. And that's where Stoic detachment begins, not in hatred, not in bitterness, but in clarity, in seeing things as they are instead of what you wish they were. Because you cannot build peace on confusion, you cannot build stability on unpredictability, and you cannot build self-respect while repeatedly accepting disrespect disguised as connection. And the moment you stop hoping she changes is the moment you start changing yourself. Because now your energy returns to you, your attention returns to you, your standards return to you, and what once felt like emotional addiction slowly transforms into awareness, where you realize you weren't weak for caring. You were just overinvested in someone underinvested in you. And breaking free isn't about proving a point to her. It's about reclaiming your own mental space, your own discipline, your own direction, because every time you chose her over yourself, you were teaching your mind that you come second in your own life. And that's the pattern that has to end, not because she becomes different, but because you become unwilling to abandon yourself for temporary attention. And when you reach that point, you stop chasing closure from someone who gave you none. You stop seeking clarity from someone who benefits from your confusion. And you stop negotiating your value with someone who already showed you how little effort they're willing to give. And instead, you begin building distance. Not emotional chaos, not revenge, but distance that protects your peace. Because healing doesn't happen while you're still emotionally tied to the source of your confusion. Healing happens when access is removed, when patterns are broken, when repetition stops reinforcing hope, and you realize that letting go isn't losing someone. It's stopping the loss of yourself. And that shift is where you become untouchable, not because nothing affects you, but because you no longer allow repeated disrespect to shape your identity. You no longer chase people who withdraw. You no longer explain yourself to people who misunderstand you on purpose or convenience, and your attention becomes selective. Your time becomes protected. Your energy becomes directed toward growth instead of uncertainty. And at that point, even the idea of going back feels unnatural, not because you stopped feeling, but because you started valuing yourself at the level you were never being valued at in that dynamic. And that is the real transformation, not changing her, not fixing the past, but refusing to repeat it, choosing discipline over emotion, clarity over fantasy, peace over chaos, and self-respect over attachment, until eventually you reach a place where what once broke you no longer has access to you, not because you built walls out of anger, but because you finally built standards out of wisdom.